In this episode, the conversation goes into real territory: trauma, suicide, loss, and what it takes to survive it all. Megan writes about these things without flinching, and we will talk about them in the same way. Viewer discretion is advised. If you need to step away at any point, do that. You can come back to the recording. Take care of yourself.
Writing and about music is that it paints the picture and you get to create the experience of it yourself. Like, you're not just fed everything. You still get some agency in the whole in the endeavor, right? Or like somebody else's creative work, you still are there as you experiencing it, and maybe they've created like a version of it that you can experience or that's safe for you. I've never been a man, but I can read about men and having their experience, and that just allows me a little more perspective. Because, at the end of the day, the more we can understand people, the more that I think the less we're going to fight or argue or have, wars. Like, we can get closer to peace if we can just say, look, I may not have been through what you've been through, but I can read this and I can apply it to myself.
Welcome to Unsentimental Letters, a literary podcast where writers join me, Edwin Canizales, to discuss their poems, songs, essays, and literary pieces they built out of real life. Then read them aloud with me.
When I think of Megan, I think about what it means to be two writers at once. She's a narrative memoirist of photographic precision. She renders scenes with unflinching physical specificity and writes about adult experience with complete honesty and zero performance. Her prose is already poetry. And then her formal poems operate in a completely different emotional register entirely. She belongs here. Unsentimental Letters with Megan is next.
Last week we did this intercontinental conversation with Zoe. This time we're doing a domestic conversation, but it's actually a like East Coast meets West Coast, so to speak, with Megan. I'm actually really excited to speak with Megan. I have some anecdotes because we actually have shared a lot of we had some brainstorm conversations, and besides being a great writer, she's I'm a fan of intelligent people. She's very intelligent, so I really enjoy changing conversations with people like that. So Megan, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
From sunny West Coast, whatever you are in the world, but welcome.
I am I'm in San Francisco right now.
Oh, right on. That's nice. Nice.
Very nice.
There was somebody who used to work for Ronald Reagan, and he said that when Gorbachev went to San Francisco, he told Reagan that he should tax people just because it's so beautiful. Just because it's so beautiful, they should tax extra. I think they took it seriously over there. It's really expensive, but
it's very expensive.
Right.
But I think it's worth it for a little bit at least.
Gorbachev said, so,
Yeah, it's an incredible city.
One of my favorite writers, his name is Miguel de Unamuno, and one of the theories that he has is that the reader has a responsibility to actually become an actor in the writer's story, right? So you're not just there to read. If you're just reading for the sake of reading, then you shouldn't be reading because you're kind of wasting time. And I agree with that because I think that intelligent writing is intelligent readers. However, there's a caveat, I think. I think that there's a responsibility that the writer needs to have in making sure that you set up the stage for people to sort of feel that, is visceral enough for you to experience it. And that's one of the things I like about what Megan does. I really enjoy that. I enjoy that she can have so much fun with the way she writes and relate stories the way she does.
So I've always been a writer, right? I think most of us writing here, a lot of us have always kind of dabbled. But for me, it was definitely a hobby. I always, had it in the back of my head that I would like to write a book, but I never really took it seriously for myself as a career. But I've just always written. I've always been able to express myself through writing, and the things that I can't seem to get out in regular life or through other ways, I can get out through the medium of writing. It's just like an honest, open playground for me. So a few years ago, well, probably 5 years ago now, I wrote a book. And I finished it, and then I just didn't do anything with it. And I haven't done anything with it. Well, now I have, but at the time. So I was looking into, what can I do? Because I was starting to sort of think, I think I'm ready to go into the lifetime where writing could become a profession for me and become serious.
Mm-hmm.
So I started looking for ways to do that and found Substack and ended up here editing as an exercise in editing. So I was going to take the book that I wrote and just re-edit it kind of in live time, one chapter at a time, do what I had to do. And a lot had changed in the 5 years since I had written it. Like literally my whole life just sort of went upside down. So I kind of now had to like re-angle it and rethink about it. And then going through the editing process, realizing, I actually don't think this way anymore. I've expanded my view or, changed, evolved. And that's what brought me to Substack. And so here I started sort of working on the memoir. And then I've always written poetry. So of course I got into poetry. And now I'm working on something else. So that's going to be coming, but I'm still doing my poetry. So I think the beauty of Substack and not being locked in as a professional writer to any one genre has given me like this ability to explore my creativity. And it's been really fun for me. And I've just enjoyed, learning so much from all the other writers here on Substack. And that's kind of my writing journey. And right now I'm in the middle of something very exciting, but I'm going to kind of keep it on the side until I'm, more ready, and then continue to use Substack as kind of my op-ed, which is another thing that I've written. So I've sort of gone from my memoir, right, poetry, op-ed, back to memoir stuff. So sort of do this little dance with myself. And I love Substack for that. I love like putting my work out there and getting honest feedback.
I'm glad you said that. The way you utilize Substack at the beginning was sort of like almost like a sandbox to sort of experiment. And I appreciate you're saying how your writing has evolved, because I think that's one of the fun parts about writing, that you can put something together and you think is like your masterpiece, and then you go back to it after you have written other things and you're like, oh, actually I'm better than this, and then you make it even better, which is really a lot of fun, and it shows a lot of growth. Also, my handle is against reduction, right? So I love that you tried all these things. I hate people being sort of go into this niche just because it doesn't make sense to me. It sort of defeats the purpose of being a writer if you do that, right?
Yeah, I'm not good at boxes. You know what I mean? I'm not very good with labels, being labeled, being put in. If I do get labeled, then I'm just going to naturally want to rebel against it. It's just my personality. We've talked about the punk thing.
Right. Yes.
That's a DNA thing.
No, we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, no, for sure. Well, I want to talk about that for sure. But but sticking with what you said, which really got me thinking. One of the things I observed on your work is that you have an interesting way of using memoir or memory rather as a survival technology. That's where my brain goes, and it makes me wonder, like to you, what does it mean to write about probably toughest parts in your memory or that happened to you? And as you do this sandbox exercise, right? What does it mean to you to do this? In essence, in public, in essence, in real time, for the audiences that are, they're watching, right? They're not really they're reading you, but also experiencing you.
Honestly, I don't think about the fact that I'm sharing very private things with the world or with the audience or with the 20 people that like my essay. I really, writing in this sense makes me or helps me make sense of it all. And for this, especially like the Jackie series, that was an incredibly traumatic time in my life that had huge repercussions that I'm still feeling, right? Like it was an earthquake with a lot of aftershocks. But, time is healing. And when I write it out from the woman that I am now, and I can talk to that little girl who went through it in a much different way, it's a very healing exercise. And I notice when I read other people that share their private work and sort of their journey through it, it helps me understand it as well. So I know that there's that give and take of my experience and being able to sort of parse it out helps the reader in some way, and vice versa. But I don't really think about the part that I'm sharing something very private, or that maybe some people would consider private. Everybody's version of private is different. Now, I'm private in other ways, right?
Right.
But these parts where I really feel like, I'm not going to say that I've healed. I feel sort of, I guess, more comfortable talking about them.
I love that you say this is, in a way, a bit of a form of therapy for you. I never thought about it that way until maybe a couple of weeks ago, but it resonates with what you just said. I was watching this documentary. It's called Men on the Run. It's a story about Paul McCartney when he left the Beatles. One of the things he said, and he's pretty much what you said, is that when he is, songwriters, they create these characters, these stories, and they talk about all these people. But he said, ultimately, that person is me. Like, this is just my way of doing therapy for the last 2 decades or whatever, 3 decades. Right. So it's really interesting that you mentioned that. I admire. I don't envy because I'm afraid to do this, but I admire when people are able to utilize memoir when they write, and also to do almost like a chronicle of their lives. I'm a bit of a coward. I hide behind my words and write fiction because, but it's based on observation, right? But it's difficult. But I think that's why I appreciate to the way you're right, because I've been told that my approach is, and I don't even know if this is like a real term. They say I'm a method writer. I don't know what that means, but I try to get into into the life of the person. But then you actually experienced it, and then you sort of reverse it, right? You sort of put in a setup that feels like fiction, but it's not. You realize, like, whoa, it's real.
Right. I mean, it's a form of self, like you like to analyze. I also like to analyze. It's sort of a form of self-analysis. You know, how did this really affect me? Like, how did I really take it from the observer's point of view? Because that's also the thing about memory. I can vacillate from being the observer and watching it into being inside of my body and experiencing it. So it's kind of like that back and forth, I think, might be interesting. But I think to the Paul McCartney movie that you watched, to that point, even in fiction, there is some of you in fiction. So you're never really, you create it as a fiction, right? And then it's other names and other characters. But at the end of the day, it has to be some of you in there because it's your human experience. We're all projecting our human experience onto, even if it's another character. And so I think of, there's a Frida Kahlo quote where she says, I paint myself because it's the subject I know best. And I feel, and that's a paraphrase, like, sorry if I've butchered it, but it's along those lines, right? But and that's sort of how I feel when I write. And even if I'm writing a fiction or, in the memoir, kind of having to fill in some fuzzy details about the day or whatever, there is still part of me always in that. And it's like, I can write about myself. It's the easiest, to be honest.
Well, yeah, what a concept, right? To write about what you know. A lot of people don't anymore, but I love your updated explanation of what Kahlo says. Mine is so old that I forgot who said it, but I know it's from ancient Greece. Philosopher, he said, know yourself and you'll get to know the world, right? Which is pretty much what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You wrote, when you finished part 6 of Jackie Saga, you wrote another piece, and it wasn't part of the things we wanted to discuss, but you made me think about it. You wrote a piece called "How Jackie Continues to Shape Me" or something like that. I'm going by memory. I was wondering. I hope people should read it, but I was wondering if you can maybe tell us. It's kind of like a summary of what that means to you.
I mean, yes, of course. Jackie continues to shape me. There's just ways in which I can understand people, I think, that I couldn't have and I think it's the Crucible, I'm not sure.
Yes, it is.
It is, okay. That I wouldn't have been able to if I didn't have this experience. And that this experience was actually so constricting in the beginning. It really shrunk me as a human. but it was like the death of a star almost, you know. It was like all that energy compounded, or I'm, you know, what is the word? Why can't I think of the word? But caved in on itself, imploded, and then exploded in the end, right? Like that I was able to take that energy, which was really difficult to deal with for a long time, but then use it as like my own catalyst for growth and kind of explode it out. And it's just I it's funny, I just don't think that something like that ever goes away. It's kind of in my DNA now.
Right. I wrote a series called the Chaos Garden, and one of the pieces is called Syntax in the Soil, and I spoke about what is the responsibility of writers, not only to the public but to themselves, right? And the idea of the Chaos Garden, for those of you who do not do gardening, I learned it from a friend of mine who does gardening. She's a professional gardener and told me what that is. But in the short of it is, when you plant a chaos garden, you take a bunch of seeds. You don't know what they are. You just go to the store and get them. You prep the soil, and then you dump it, and then you take care of it, and then you get surprised with what blooms. Right? It can be whatever flowers. And when I think of writers that I admire, and when I think of your writing, that's exactly what comes to mind. You know, you sort of got all these seeds handed to you, right? And you just you took care of the environment or the habitat where you are, and something beautiful bloomed out of that. And it's nice to be able to take things that might be viewed as something you don't want to deal with or you don't want to have, like random seeds, and utilize them to find utility, not only for you in the process of therapy or whatever you want to call it, but also for others that who can benefit from what you have to share. Right.
They can share in the garden, right? Take some vegetables with them. I love that analogy because it's really true. And this, one of the ways that it has shaped me is that I don't really ever feel like anything bad happens to me or is going to happen to me. Because even when we label it like that, good, bad, or this was a negative experience or this was a positive experience, it's really all just experiences, and what do we do with them, right? And so, like going through Jackie and seeing sort of my own arc from it, just gave me sort of the knowing, like the deep knowing that everything is going to be okay. Like there's whatever I'm given will, if I allow it to, will somehow grow me, right? It'll be another vegetable in my garden. It's just more nutrients for my soil. Even in the moment, sometimes when I'm going through things, I just remind myself, like, there's something beyond this. Just kind of stick with it, go through it, feel it out, and see what blossoms. I love that analogy.
I do believe that all things are neutral. All things are neutral. What makes it good or bad is the perspective you put, or the perspective from which you come, right? But ultimately, two things I believe are true. One is what happens to me happens to the world just because I'm part of it, not because I'm important to it. But also, not what happens to me is what happens for me, right? And that's what it sounds like your lesson is. It's what happens for you serves you to do other things with it.
Exactly. Life happens. How do we choose to live? How do we respond to it? What do we take from it? It's not, and the thing about humans is we always sort of like to do this or that. Like, well, it's either got to be, sad or it grew you, but it's both, right? It was a sad event. There was a tragedy involved, but it also was one of like the biggest things in my life that changed me and put me on this trajectory to be who I am today. So I can't say I would go back and change it, right? I wouldn't. So it's like there's the tragedy and the growth and the happiness and the knowing. It's a lot of ands as opposed to ors or.
Well, and also if you think about it, even if you took the lessons or the occurrences that you have to experience as bad or as losses or failures, as a former athlete, elite athlete, I can tell you learn nothing from winning.
Yeah,
You don't.
right.
You learn.
Humans need challenge.
Mm-hmm.
We need it. And when we don't have it, we create it ourselves.
Right. We're out of trouble.
Right? We make up our own dramas, we make up our own issues, so we need some form of challenge. And like you said, as an athlete, if you don't continually like up the ante on yourself, you're gonna flatline, right?
Yes, actually, I feel like I learn more from losing than winning. And I've seen athletes that are, had amazing trajectories and were at the top of the game for a long time, and then they lost one time, and they just broke them. Like, they couldn't come back from a loss because they're not used to losing. It's really hard. It's interesting how humans work. When I read your saga as a pillar of your project, I feel like that is an important piece of everything else that you do.
Yes.
And I love what you do with it when you play with poetry and whatnot. But it reminds me of a fiction that I've been sharing with folks. It's called Physics of a Third Death. A lot of people think is sci-fi. It's not, and the reason why I say it's not sci-fi is because moon exploration is real. It's happening right now. A lot of money has been put into it. There is a reality of people at the local level in a lot of small towns are struggling with the idea of what to do with their water rights and how to as local leaders either fight or manage or find a way to manage multi-billion-dollar corporation wanting to take what little water they have when this resource is limited, and what happens after that, and what kind of pain happens when things go sideways, right? When they have to experience death. For whatever reason, as I wrote this and as I started thinking about the things I wanted to discuss with you, I kept on going back to your story and thinking, one of the main lessons is the same as the one that I'm talking about. In my story, I know most people say you die twice, right? You die when you physically have passed, but then you die when people forget about you, which is probably, for existentialist people like me, that's the scariest thing that can happen, because then you're really dead. There's no legacy left. I was wondering if you have reflected on that when you take your work from your story, your main story that you've been working on so much. Are there any lessons, or do you perceive anything in regards to this idea of, you don't really die if the stories and the memories stay alive with people, and there are lessons to be learned, to be shared with others? Like, is that something that is important to you?
Not really, because I'm not afraid of death. No, not really. I mean, I want my stories to stay in the lessons to learn, but I kind of feel like it infuses into the ether, sort of. Like, once it's put out there, it's out there, and it's in the cells, and who's ever read it is going to take some memory from it, just like I've taken little bits and pieces, and that lives on. And I have children, and they'll tell stories of me in memories. But honestly, the thought of no one remembering who I am or like that doesn't bother me.
That's fascinating. We need more people like that, because then we'll have less psychopaths and narcissists trying to go to take over the world. That's great. We need more of those.
Yeah,
that's good stuff. We're not going to get too deep into this, but you keep on reminding me of all your work. Like I said, I read it all, so I keep on thinking we're going to talk about 3 pieces,
which is amazing. Thank you so much for reading all of my work. I really appreciate that. It's incredible. It's such a compliment.
It's so much fun. Actually, if you don't mind, I'll share this with folks. Megan and I actually exchanged communication when I started reading some of her work, and then I learned some really awesome things about her besides her being so talented. She is definitely somebody who likes literature and poetry, and more importantly for me, on my goofy side, is music. So I should learn that she has exquisite taste in music, and I'm being super biased. I do too, but it was the first person on Substack that actually loves Lou Reed probably just as much as I do. So and the Velvet Underground. But so I was wondering how music has influenced sort of the way you look at how you play.
Oh my God. Yeah, music is huge. Music is huge for me. And I go I can have a bit of like an obsessive personality. And so right now I'm in a deep dive of Kendrick Lamar, who I've been obsessed with for a long time. I mean, since he came, 2012 or whenever he dropped his first album. But I go in cycles. So it's kind of Kendrick Lamar, Radiohead, Bjork, which like you played Bjork with my intro, which is incredible. The Queen, I love her so much. Lou Reed, just so much music. I just love listening to the way they express feelings through lyrics, and I love, they're all kind of like a little different, right? It's not pop music, I guess, or it's not really so formulaic. And there's just music definitely shapes me, and I feel it. I mean, right now, like I've been sort of, like I said, on this, like I'm just listening to all this music, and I'll go through phases where I listen to a lot of music, and then I don't listen to anything. It'll be like a month, and it's nothing. And I feel like my brain takes the music and takes the words and the lyrics and the way that these artists are able to express themselves, and like it all gels around in my head and becomes soupy, and then I just have to let it sit over whatever, right? And then it comes out. And I'm not exactly sure how it affects my writing, but I know that it inspires me, like in the sense that it just inspires me to write and to express and to create. So I love music. Yes.
Awesome. And for all you kids out there who do not know who the Velvet Underground is and Lou Reed is, you have got to get your act together and start
find that out.
Research, because as Megan and I have learned, the modern music started with the Velvet Underground. There is a before.
Yeah. Yes.
For sure. And I think that
for sure.
people like us, Megan, who explore conversations that are honest and not performative, and put it on the table, not as learn from this or whatever, but rather as here, this is it, right? I think that type of like, I don't think people could write like that if it wasn't for people like the Velvet Underground, bands like the Velvet Underground, who were able to speak about drug use and buying drugs in New York City in a beautiful song, or just walking around New York City as a perfect day,
right?
Or even
just any of it,
BDSM, like everything,
prostitution, and then the minimalistic music in the background, like all of it, sort of jilted tempos, and it's poetry to music,
Right. Even writers of that time and on, there is a before and after and all that, because these people, and this, but for all of you guys watching, these people didn't just hang out in the Village in New York City or the Bowery on their own. They were hanging out with artists, like, I mean,
it was a movement.
It was a movement. Those together, and that was part of the punk culture, early punk culture and whatnot. So without all that, we wouldn't have the opportunity for us to be able to write about the things that even to this day people are uncomfortable with, right?
Yes.
And you do that so well, Megan. You have a poem in where you talk about, it was hard to get through because it was so good and visceral, about the death of it's a child drowning. I forgot the name of it, but it was
Little Boy Blue.
Right, that one. It was so. And then you also speak. There was another poem. Another piece where you speak about attraction and older men and whatnot, and it was so good, because just like with the Velvet Underground, because I don't do drugs, I never have, but I love like that song Heroin, because then I know I kind of know what it's like to do heroin because of that song. So I was.
He makes it safe for you too, sort of like a safe experience,
right? Those two pieces really appeal to the voyeur in me, to like allow myself to be curious and go, okay, what is this about? She's not telling me she's for it or against it. She's just telling me, look, this happened to somebody. I
think that's the beauty of music and writing, is that you can invite somebody, and I especially love writing over, like I'm not the biggest movie person, but I do love excellent movies. I love movies sometimes, but what I really love about writing and about music is that it paints the picture and you get to create the experience of it yourself. Like you're not just fed everything. You still get some agency in the whole in the endeavor, right? Or like somebody else's creative work, you still are there as you experiencing it, and maybe they've created like a version of it that you can experience or that's safe for you. I've never been a man, but I can read about men and having their experience, and that just allows me a little more perspective, because at the end of the day, the more we can understand people, the more that I think the less we're going to fight or argue or have wars. Like we can get closer to peace if we can just say, look, I may not have been through what you've been through, but I can read this and I can apply it to myself. Like I can have my own experience through your experience. And it just makes the world a more open place. And it's not all, like in a movie where everything is sort of thought out for you. All the senses are taken care of. Reading and music still allows it to like be your own sensory experience too. You're sort of using someone else to help you, right? Get there.
Right. Yeah, they make it. They hold your hand. I mean, you sort of do that with your work too. You sort of, hold people's hands, even mine, to be okay with reading these things that I might otherwise be uncomfortable talking to people about it in a social setting, right?
Right. Yes, exactly. It's just kind of a safer way, I guess.
Right. And then, but then you have knuckleheads like me who love movies too, and then they go out and take cinematic tours. Like I wrote like 3 pieces all the time, but it does create, like you said, it creates new memories, right? Because I will go to somebody else and experience what I thought the movie would have made me feel, but really it's like it becomes mine.
Right. Yeah. I guess movies are intense for me because I just take it on, I just feel it, and then I'm like bawling, and so there's like
love it.
It's almost too graphic, right? For my brain, but I love them, but it's just I know I'm going to go and I'm going to feel heavy, so just kind of a little safe space with books.
What did Nick Harvey say? Hey, movies, books, and vinyl, those things matter. Call me fucking shallow, but those things matter, right? So it's true.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah, and just going back to and again just to riff on your comments on music. I'm actually working on a new fiction, a short story, and there's a whole chapter where these two lovers, these two people who have gone through some problems, a big rupture, they're trying to work it out. They only have 1 week to work things out and see if they can rebuild something. They spend almost a whole night sharing songs, like the whole. They literally express all the purgatorial pain they've gone through by being apart from the person they belong with, their soulmate, so to speak.
Yeah.
Through songs and obviously I cannot copy and paste the songs, but I mentioned it in hopes that people can read the song. But it's just like every single song in the chapter is a prelude to a whole bunch of really heavy feelings that would otherwise not be able to express. So in essence, like in the chapter, these two folks that love each other and honestly spiritually belong with each other, they without knowing, they put together like almost like a mixtape of like songs or so.
Right. Yeah.
And it makes a whole difference in their lives.
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, how many times have you I express myself through music all the time to other people. Send somebody a song. Oh, this reminds me of you, but in a way I could never say it. Or this reminds me of us, or this reminds me of me. Somehow explaining some part of myself for someone else through a song, or giving somebody a little more clarity. It's like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you my life story, but listen to this song and you'll know me, type of thing. Like there's so much that can be expressed through it.
Right.
I love it.
And and honestly, and let me fanboy you a bit. I think some of your works actually have done that for me. Like I've read some of your pieces, and I mean, it's bound to happen. I have not experienced death the way you have exposed it, but it makes me think of some other hard times, and it puts me in that place where I go, oh, that's what was going on inside, right? Like, let me digest this.
Yeah.
Then you realize how, regardless of the experience, there are things that metabolize and become something else from those experiences. But it's nice to have somebody else sort of, again, coming from a different perspective and give that to you and share that with you. You had written, I think it was called Acceptance. You have, right?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit? Just for the folks who might not have read it, can you talk a bit about what that piece is about?
This is accepting. So this is my story of getting pregnant for the first time with my oldest son, and accepting, right, that role of a mother, which I knew I needed. So everybody has their own experience in life. I knew from a young age that I wanted children, and on some level, I needed them. And I hate to say, oh, I had children to heal myself, because that's not what it was. That's what it ended up being. I just always knew that I really wanted children. And by this time in my life, in this story, it felt like I was going to float away if I didn't. And I couldn't do certain things for myself. But I knew I would be able, like, I would just have a love for this child that I had envisioned, for my whole life, that then I could. And maybe from the Jackie stories, if you read them. And so that my niece was a big part of that. And when I felt like when I lost her and my sister at the same time, of course, my niece was still alive and, we had a relationship going on. But in my stories with Jackie, I talk about how at that age, I was almost 14 years old. I really thought that I was going to be taking my niece and raising her. I mean, because I was in this, I was in a crazy, experience was happening all around me. Like, there were some really heavy things going on. And so my mind created, I'm going to care for this baby. Like, this is what I'm meant to do. I'm going to make everything all right through the child with my sister. Well, of course that didn't happen, because I was 13 and nobody was leaving me to raise a baby at that time. But I think, like you said, the experience metabolized, and there was something in me that never let that go. And with the story Acceptance, it was acceptance on many levels. Acceptance that I was going to choose to be in the relationship with this man, right? And that he was going to be the father of my children, my child, and subsequently my children. And accepting him for who he was and what he could give me. Because he was limited, I was limited, we were both limited in what we could give each other and what love meant. But ultimately that it was just the acceptance of these are the conditions that I need to do what I have to do. And then I did what I had to do.
No, but that's brilliant too, because I think it gives people the freedom to, I don't know how else to say this, but I think it's the appropriate way to surrender to the reality, and then deal with
it. Yes.
And that's true for things that you have to struggle with, or even fun challenges. Like I said, if you want to make the Olympic team, you have to surrender to a number of things in order to float and get to it. Same thing if if you're back in the 70s in New York City trying to make a name for yourself as in a band or something, and you had to live in a squat, you start squatting or whatever, just because you need to surrender to that reality in order to move forward, right? So
yes,
whatever extreme that is, or middle, you have to. And yes. I like when I was reading some of that work again, and I was reflecting on the fiction that I wrote, the character, and again, this is fiction, but the character, her name is Daniela. She has lost her best friend, a boy that she had a big crush on. He dies in this explosion, and she's dealing with a lot of mixed feelings. One is, obviously survivor's guilt, and then this deep sense of she has lost not only her best friend and a guy for whom she had a crush, but also half her town got wiped out from the event. So for again a teenager, it was really hard to see the world. And then her the boy sort of came back to life. So they found him alive. So then she had to deal with all that. Like she was dealing with, I surrendered to the death, right? To the reality of the death. But then now you all the little shit sandwich and tell me like now I had to like go back to be happy, but like half the time still dead, but I'm supposed to be happy. Like how do I deal with that?
Right. Yeah, I mean, life it's just one choice after the next, right? And even in these little moments, what are we choosing to feel? How are we choosing resistance? Are we choosing acceptance? And I agree with you. I think that acceptance and surrender, and that's not giving up, right? It's an important distinction between giving up and surrender and acceptance. But I agree with you that I don't, in my own life, I have noticed I've not been able to really move on from things until I have fully accepted what is.
Right.
And you can't fake it. You can't just say, oh, I accept this. Yeah, I accept it. Sure. Like, let's move on now. It doesn't work that way. It has to be deep. And I don't always know when that happens.
Right.
Right. It's just something clicks and then it changes. I know when it's happened because then all of a sudden I've moved on from it, or I've moved into this next phase or this next lifetime. And there had to be like an acceptance of the old first. So I'm not sure always when it happens or how, but for me, I know that it needs to happen. It's just, it's like an integral step in my process.
For me, embracing the verb to surrender actually happened in a very mundane way, but it became such a big lesson for me. I was on vacation and somebody talked me into learning how to scuba dive, and I said, okay, whatever, I'll try it. And there was this instructor, and she was great. She was so cheerful and whatnot. And then you put on the mask and you have the tank, not the tank, whatever, the little scuba thingy.
Yeah.
And then it's time to go in the water. And like it was so scary. I have competed in contact sports, and I guess not consciously risk my life because you get hit, like you can literally die, right? But I have never been so scared in my life as those 2 seconds going in, and then something happened. As the water was sort of covering my head, that's when I knew, okay. Oh, this is surrendering to your space. It's saying, okay, I'm here now.
Yeah.
I still have to breathe. I still have to, be around these people and not be a burden to them, and find a way to sort of float through this, like literally float through this, right?
Trust the tank. Yeah.
Right. So then I used to tell people all the time, like, it sounds nice and clever to be, intellectual and intellectualized.
Right.
Will surrender to your reality. But it was then that I realized that that clicked in my head and it stuck with me. And then I started sort of reflecting on, that's exactly what happened to me in this occasion and this occasion. And even when I read some of the stuff you write about, often it's the word that comes to mind. Somebody, like, things get solved once you surrender to what you have to deal with. And like you said, it's not giving up. It's saying, I'm going to deal with the tools that were handed to me.
Yeah. And when you compare it to the scuba, you have that tank, right? So it's like what I just said, trust the tank. So maybe we always have a tank, so to speak, right? We don't always see it, or we don't know if it's going to work, but something gets us through all of these things in the end. I mean, even if you don't accept something, if you resist it the whole way, it doesn't stop it from happening.
Right.
It doesn't end it, right? Like, you're still going through it. You may as well just get in alignment with it, right? And trust the tank. I like that.
Right. No, and again, your work continues to reinforce that lesson, that life lesson for me. So, I'm just a big fan. Anyway, I wanted to do an experiment with you, and something that I try to do with our guests here is I wanted you to read a piece of it's sort of like the end of your saga, but I want to make sure that people understand this is not a spoiler, so don't worry, you can listen to it. There's a whole lot of things that happen. I feel like you could have started the whole story with this, or you could have it in the middle. Like, it wouldn't matter. Like, there's value anywhere you put it. I think that's one of the things I really enjoy about your work. Something really terrible had happened right before this scene, so to speak.
She, in this scene, I find out that she does. So in the preceding parts of this writing, this is the end where I found out, where we get the phone call. basically. But preceding this is sort of the downward spiral. I was witness to my sister's collapse, basically, like psychotic break and collapse. Now, it had been coming for a long time. It wasn't like some overnight thing. She didn't have a psychotic break out of nowhere. There was a lot of issues, including postpartum psychosis, which she was never diagnosed. But now looking back, and I don't even know if they diagnosed that back then. But now looking back, I'm sure that was a part of it. There was a lot going on. So when it finally happened, I wasn't surprised, because the last time that I saw my sister, I knew there was no, and I got the phone call on the day after my 14th. So she committed suicide the day after my birthday. So I was with her the entire week before her birthday, and then I turned 14, and then she did it the next day, and that's when we got the phone call. But I knew it was coming. Like, I had been with her, and even at that age, I knew there was no way that this life was sustainable. And I didn't see her being able to help herself out of it. It was almost like this is going to sound harsh, but it's like she had to press the respawn button. Like, she just had to start over. And I'm not mad at her for it, right? Like, of course, grief goes through all those things of anger and all of the different emotions. But, I know, like, you don't commit suicide on a whim usually. I mean, sometimes, right, but it's a very intense thing when you really sit and think about it. Like, we can think, oh, I want to die. Oh my God, I wish this wasn't happening to me. But to really actually do it, that takes a mindset that is, I mean, it's tragic in and of itself. And and it's something at that point she wasn't getting away from, and she didn't. It was done. It's been done.
Right.
And so this was this was finding out. I don't remember driving home with my mother. I'm not sure how I left Nanny's house and got back to my dad's house. But on my 14th birthday, a few days later, there I was, back at my dad's spacious, clean, uniform, single-family home on a cul-de-sac in a nice suburban neighborhood. The phone rang in the kitchen, and I answered it quickly, ready to receive my birthday wishes. My oldest niece, Jackie's other daughter, Cora, was on the line. Happy birthday, Auntie Maggie. Her voice was like fizzy soda pop. Oh, wow. Thank you, Cora. I heard my sister in the background. Mommy says happy birthday too, she said. Okay, please tell her I say thank you. I love you guys. It was the first time that I had ever denied the chance to talk to my sister. The following day on September 1, the phone on the wall in the kitchen rang again. My dad and stepmother were hanging out in the adjacent living room watching TV. I picked up. Hello? Meg, it's Uncle Bill. There was a crack in my uncle's voice. Yes, hi, Uncle Bill. I was taken aback because a phone call from Uncle Bill on a day other than my birthday was extremely rare. Jackie's dead. He stated the words matter-of-factly as if that would temper their wickedness. I inhaled sharply through my mouth. What? What? It had happened. Jackie's dead. She committed suicide. His voice cracked again. What? How? I couldn't contain myself. She hanged herself in the bathroom. Dylan found her. His words were an attack with a blunt object. Was Cora there? I felt my throat pulsating. No, thank God, she was with her dad. His voice had a sprinkle of relief in it that I grasped onto. I stood silent with the phone in my hand, just staring at the wall. What could I say? This news of suicide was not surprising. What about Phoebe? I asked. She's here with Dylan at Nanny's. His mom is helping too. You need to get over here. Your brother will come pick you up. We said our goodbyes and hung up. I felt myself crack. I knew then that life as I knew it had been irrevocably changed. My two nieces had lost their mother. Phoebe belonged to someone else now, and I had lost her. The swallowed words of my experience floated disparately in my wounded belly, and their loss of meaning left me bloated with pain and confusion. I was alone. Her death was the most extreme symptom of her illness, and one that no one had talked about. Except for Jackie, she had often said that she wouldn't make it to 30, and true to her word, she ended her life 10 days before her 30th birthday. Her life had been in shambles, and now she had pressed the respawn button and tapped herself out once and for all. But I was still alive. Our week together hadn't been an arc in our relationship. It had been the pinnacle. I closed my eyes and watched with my inner eye as the timeline of events rushed through my psyche. My arrival at the train station, the mail, the baby, the flop house, the chaos, the drugging, Dylan, the drugs, the filth, the confusion, the pain, the shame, and all the hurt all merged into one incredible force, pushing me up a mountain to the peak of Jackie's existence. There, at the edge of everything, was Jackie. I pulled her close to me with desperation. Don't leave me here alone again. I pleaded her to try harder, stay for me, stay for them, stay for us. But it was all for naught. My arms were empty. Jackie was dead, and I would have to find my way down the mountain alone, with nothing but her ghost to guide me.
Now I understand. It wasn't the hug, it wasn't the weight, the judgment, the voice of the past, paper sewn into skin, a doctor without respite, without dawn. When I say love, your body trembles. It's not fire, it's flight. It's the open wound, a castle built with warm grace, a deep moat, silent walls. You don't avoid me, you dodge the pain, the shadow of fear, the price of the year. And here I am, without key or rush, just sincere love, just a breeze. When you're ready, when you can see, behind the door, I will stay. It's not indifference, it's edifice, skin tattoo with nights of doubt, a card engraved in stone, the high cost of opening the door. I didn't come to break what protected you, only to remind you of what awaited you. Joy will sing on this beach again when you're ready, when you breathe life. You don't avoid me, you dodge the pain, the shadow of fear, the price of the year. And here I am, no key and no rush, just true love, again, just breeze. When you're ready, when you can see behind the door, I will stay. For some reason in my head, I feel like these two pieces talk to each other in my head. I don't know what's going through your head right now.
There's this there. It's interesting because I got a little emotional reading this, but there is a sense of removal. There is a sense of that was a character I've played in my life. I've lived so many lives, as I'm sure you have, or in these lifetimes, and this was a part of myself and of my lifetime that I couldn't relate to for a really long time. I just kind of broke ties with her, with
Mhm.
this girl who, from it, because this, like I said, had repercussions that sort of echoed for quite some time. And as an adult, I couldn't really relate anymore to this version of myself because I'd kind of just put her away. It was painful. It was a painful time. I couldn't really digest what had happened to me. And these are in the days, this happened in 1995. So, or 90, I think, no, it was 95. 1995. So people weren't talking about mental health the way they are today.
Right.
That my family, no one, my sister committed suicide. The rest of the siblings, everybody splintered, right? It did not bring us closer together as a family. We were already kind of shaky as it was. So it didn't bring us closer. It splintered us and nobody talked about it. And I started school the next week in a new high school. You know what I mean? So it was one of these things that was like, okay, well, so we're just going to bury that. And I became very good at compartmentalizing these parts of myself. So I think that there's some, and at this point, I've opened up the box of this young Megan again and been experiencing her and talking to her and accepting her and not bringing her into the light, right? It's like she doesn't have to be cast out into the shadows forever. She's withering out there. So bringing her back in and integrating her back into my whole self has been part of this whole project. But like you said, because of that separation or maybe compartmentalization, I can sort of write about it like a character because I can observe her that way now. I'm not in it anymore. And I sort of removed myself from it for so long that even still, it's like, that happened to me. That was me, but I know it was, but yeah, there's a degree of separation. It's interesting.
Right, but there is a beauty on embracing that that identity as it was, because I feel like um, throughout anybody's cycle of life, you have to deal with a number of things, and different identities help you survive that. Like, similarly
Yes,
to the poem that I was saying,
absolutely.
in the story, the guy is telling the young woman, the woman in the story is saying, I see what you're going through, and I see this persona you adopted to survive this.
Right.
You needed that person, right? And
Yes.
he's not saying like, you're better or worse than this, or I pity you. And he's simply saying, no, I get it now. You
You get
need
it now.
this identity. You need this. You need to embrace and manage pain this way, and you need to manage your trauma this way. And
Yeah.
once that identity is no longer useful to you, and that's once you're ready to move on to the next stage of your life, I'll be here, no rush. I'll be here because I see all of the beauty that you are, not just that one
Yes.
part of you, because you're not one thing, right? And
Right.
I see that on your piece too. And that's why I want you to read the last part, because I feel like it's not the end. It's almost like I'm not sure if it's the end of the beginning of or the beginning of the end, but it's
Right.
a moving point.
It's
And
both.
go ahead. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You told me, actually. You wrote it.
No, I think it's both. I know you can keep talking. I'm just like, as you're saying it, that
Yeah.
was in my head, my response.
But it made me wonder, right? It gives the comfort of knowing, however painful that experience was, that even if I didn't know you, and even if you had written this as a fiction, not as a memoir, that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, and that at some point, that identity of that child was going to transform into, someone else. And in essence, I don't want to say happy ending, because the beauty of life is that we are the series of stories we tell ourselves, and it's a continuous draft, right? And it doesn't end until we
Yes.
cease to exist. So I want to
Yes.
say it's a
Yes.
beautiful continuation of a draft that you're writing.
Yes. And I love in your piece how he talks about himself, right, as a breeze, right? Like the breeze will be there. This was sort of like a breeze in my life for a while. I would feel a little bit of it every so often, but not too strong, just enough to remember, like, oh, that window's open and there's this nice breeze coming in on me, or whatever it was, right? And yeah, I think with this story and how it shaped me, yes, nothing ever ends. Like I said, it was both. It was the end of one thing and the beginning of something else. And there's another quote that I love from a book, and this is from The Last Unicorn. And there's a character, Schmendrick the Magician. This is considered a children's book, but it's an incredible book. I think everybody should read it. But he says there are no happy endings because nothing ever ends. And it's sort of what you said. So it's this little girl, she became part of the woman I am today, but in sort of a roundabout way, right? And it's not ended, and Jackie's not ended, and she has children, and I'm not ended, and we'll just continue these stories.
I think that you get it, that there's a draft that we continue to write, that you continue to write, it continues to evolve, and you learn every time, right?
Yes, and especially as artists. I mean, we're on here regardless of what you're writing. I don't know. I guess if you're writing like super technical pieces, but you and I know have this art side to us. I know, like, I try to, I create through my writing, right? And this is like my form of art, one of them. And art is always evolving because we're always evolving and the world is always evolving and we're always just reflecting back to it. So, you can't really stagnate as an artist. And once you do, maybe you should, check yourself.
I was wondering, as far as like, what would be an ideal end of the road, once the time comes for you, with your relationship with the way you write about death and your relationship with death. And if I had to answer that question for myself, it would be, in the perfect world, I can still do a handstand like I do now, and I'm going to learn something new right before it's time for me to go. So I
Yeah.
want to be able to say, holy shit, that was interesting, and then like be done. You know?
For me, ideally, all my kids will still love me. I'll have a lot of grandkids that love me too. I too will all be able to squat and play around on the floor. Like I want to be able to hop up and down from a seated position on the floor up to when I'm standing. You know, I want to be healthy as I grow and mobile and happy, like joyful. I hope that when the time comes, I'm in a supreme state of peace and acceptance, right? Peace is sort of a function of acceptance, or acceptance is a function of peace, I guess, is the other way around. And that, you know, the people that I love me and like truly love me, not just because I'm their mom and they're supposed to, but that we have relationships, and we do. I have great relationships with all my kids. I hope that continues until the day I die.
Well, that's beautiful. And judging by your works, I think that you will continue to evolve, and I look forward to continue to learn from you and experience
this has been fun.
the work that you do. Yeah, you have a beautiful soul. So I wanted to
Thank
end
you.
our conversation with your sharing your piece Scorpion, and then we'll sort of finish with that. But again, I just wanted to thank you for joining me today, and thank everybody for joining us too, because I'm
Thank
glad
you. This is fun.
if they are new to you, I'm excited that I know that they will probably enjoy all the work that you have to do. And it was great. You know, I just realized I never seen your face. All this time we've been chatting and exchanging.
I
I never
know.
knew what you look like.
I know, because well, here I am.
Hello.
This is me.
Yeah. I'm the same.
This has been great. Thank you so much for having me. I've really
No,
enjoyed this.
Great joy. So everyone, here's Megan one last time in her piece Scorpion.
Okay, Scorpion. And I'm wearing my scorpion necklace that lost little stinger.
Oh, brilliant.
On the day, yeah, this is a scorpion necklace, which it had a stinger that I'm going to tell this little story because I think there's something more to it. Everybody can do with what they want with this. I don't have an answer for it. But this necklace has been repaired 3 times. Well, twice. The third time, this stinger fell off again, and not like I snagged on anything, just randomly fell off. And so my son said, well, why? Why does that keep happening? Like, what's the reason? So I don't know. What's the reason? Maybe I'm not getting stung anymore. Let's see. But anyways, it's my stingerless scorpion, and I'm not going to fix it again. Okay, Scorpion. On the day of your birth, the universe rejoiced. Stars sang in harmonious unison that the one who possessed such power had been brought in to protect the shadow from itself. Sting me with your venomous tail. Infect my blood with your elixir of death. Inoculate me against myself. Drag me into your cave. Hide me there. Guard us there in the darkness of your temple. Feast on my sacrifice. 8 legs driving into me, pinchers picking me over. My death is your life, born anew through you. I would suffer eternal stings to exist in the deep of your velvet night. My corpse enveloped in your softness, my spirit rising to meet your gates. Let me in. There is no other capable of enduring. And if I falter, try to crawl away, drag me back in. Pray on me, pray over me.
Thank you again. And, thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was great.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Adios.